Hello, my name is James McFarland. This is my project manager interview in completion for EAC 582.
And I have the pleasure of interviewing Avis Canty, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Avis Canty, and I am a project manager for Wells Fargo at the moment. I've been working in the financial services industry for about 25 years, first with Bank of America for about 17 years, and then I've been with Wells Fargo now for about 5 years. So I'm originally from Goldsboro, North Carolina, and I currently live in Charlotte.
Okay. All right, so we'll get into the questions. So how did your role of project manager come about with your current job?
So with my current job, I started out as a technical project manager for Wells Fargo, specifically working on system implementations for a system called LARS. I was kind of a liaison between the business side and the technical side for that specific project. And once the project ended, I was actually a contract role. So I wasn't a full-time employee. I was working as a contractor with a company called Accenture. Once my contract ended, I started to look for another role actually before the contract ended, I started to try and look for either another contract role with another company or a contract role within Wells Fargo. It didn't pan out. I started interviewing for full-time positions. The position that I interviewed for, they ended up freezing that position. So I ended up having to leave Wells Fargo, and I started a contract position with Bank of America. The position that I was in contracting as a technical PM, the business unit that I worked for had a project manager position come open for more of like a business project manager. And because I had worked with the majority of that team and they were familiar with me, she called me back to see if I would be interested in a full-time role with Wells Fargo. And so that's how I ended up in my current role with Wells Fargo as a business project manager.
So how did your formal education prepare you for being a project manager?
My formal education really didn't prepare me at all, because when I graduated from college, undergrad, as well as graduate school, project management wasn't really a position in a lot of companies. I think project management probably became a role more so around 2004, 2005, around that time. I started noticing that the field was growing a lot and a lot more people were coming into different organizations with project management background, and projects just kind of started taking flight at that point. But initially, when I was in undergrad and in grad school, my desire was not project management at all. It just kind of happened just over time as companies began to go into Six Sigma, SDLC, waterfall, those types of projects. It became kind of popular, and so it's kind of taken flight since about 2004, 2005. And so my formal education, project management wasn't even an option. But since then, I understand that a lot of people are able to go now and get 4-year degrees in project management and even graduate level degrees in project management.
Okay, so what do you wish you would have been included in your formal education to prepare you for being a project manager?
I think probably the negotiation skills, the people skills, because a lot of times you are asking people to do things that in some cases that might be outside of their normal everyday responsibilities. So you're asking people a lot of times to help, basically in their spare time with project work or testing or different deliverables that you may have as a part of the project. And so a lot of that, I think you have to have really good people skills. You have to be able to negotiate. You really have to be able to get people to want to help you, especially in those situations where assisting on a project is not their primary role. They have other full-time responsibilities that they are required to do. And so helping with some of the project deliverables is something that they have to do kind of in their spare time when they have time. So definitely people skills, negotiation skills, just being able to communicate effectively with people and get them to want to assist you without, in some cases, having to actually escalate to their manager to get them to help.
Challenges you faced as a project manager thus far?
Probably the similar, as I was saying, the people skills and the negotiation skills. Just a lot of times having to jump through hoops in some cases to get people to do the things that you need for them to do within the timelines that you stated or specific timelines for the project. Sometimes it can be difficult to meet timelines, and so of course you have to really have a plan in place to communicate as well as just negotiate with people to get the work done.
What ways do you document the scope of a project?
Usually the primary document, of course, is the project charter. That's usually at the beginning of the project where you start to talk through what you're trying to accomplish as a part of the project. In addition to that, the business requirement document is a kind of your main document that highlights the key items that you want to accomplish as part of the project. So the main two documents would be the charter and the business requirement.
Okay. So how do you handle scope creep?
Lately, a lot of the projects that I've been involved in, we've been able to have a phased approach. And basically what that means is we may start out with a project, specific requirements for the project, and then as we go through the process of developing, designing, building, we may identify additional requirements that we might want to include. And of course, if it's too late, we would either do a change request to include it, or we would handle that request as a part of a second or third phase of the project. And so a lot of the projects that I've been involved in recently, we've had the ability to create another phase to address items that we may have missed in the first phase.
What are some examples of ways you have successfully mitigated project risk?
One of the things that we try to do is document risks as they come up. Of course, we usually have weekly meetings with the project team to talk through all of the different deliverables. And if a risk comes up or someone mentions something that we might want to consider, we usually try to document it. And in addition to that, we try to review that at least a few times a month as part of our project meetings and discussions, so that we can determine whether or not those risks are still relevant, if we have mitigated whatever we need to do to make sure that those risks are not, don't actually come to fruition. We try to make sure we talk about it, and as we go through the risk, make sure that if something is no longer a risk, that we document that appropriately.
So does that encompass risk management plan? Do y'all do risk management plans beforehand?
Yeah, we do that. And then we update it. So it's a living document that we update throughout the different phases of the project. So it's always something that we can go back and add more to as we go through each of the milestones.
some advice you can offer for preparing for a successful managing collaboration on a project?
I would say definitely you want to make sure that you schedule meetings as often as as needed. Of course, in most cases, you would have a project meeting once a week that will provide a status, and then if there are discussions that need to be had with maybe a smaller group of people, maybe set up those discussions in addition to the weekly meeting where you have all of your key contacts. Maybe set up a separate work group meeting with maybe 3 or 4 people, smaller work group session to collaborate and discuss any issues.
What advice would you give to someone entering to the field on a lesson learned with regard to managing projects?
My advice would be just to always be eager to learn new things. Always, of course, you want to learn from the people who are involved in the project, people who are engaged in the project, but just always be willing to listen to people. That's important because a lot of the folks that you're dealing with on whatever project you're on, in most cases, you're going to have to work with them again. So it's important that you build relationships. You're constantly learning. You're constantly communicating to people. You want to create an environment where people feel comfortable coming to you and sharing things with you. So it's just really important that you're always learning and you're always communicating and developing those relationships.
I take now to better prepare myself for a future in project management?
I would definitely say, in addition to project management training, that you also look into agile training. That's another project methodology that is new and is up and coming, and a lot of companies are starting to use agile, which is in most cases a shorter time period. It's not as much documentation. Projects are kind of broken into sprints, and so something that may take 6 months on a waterfall project, in an agile environment, it might only take 2 months. So projects are able to turn things around a lot quicker. So if one thing I would recommend definitely is for you to consider taking some agile.
Okay. All right. So what actually sparked your interest in project management?
So I didn't really have an interest in project management. I actually, when I finished grad school, I started working for a company called Accenture, and Accenture was a really big consulting firm, and they had a training program called an analyst/consultant training program, where you went into that program. I think it was about a 4-week training program, and you learned all about project management and, everything. We learned from beginning to end. Accenture kind of had their own methodology at that time. And so I don't even think that at that time I knew what I was getting myself into. I just knew that I wanted to work for Accenture because it was a great company. And once I kind of got into that organization, I realized, okay, so really we're doing project management. And so, of course, from there, the roles that I had were project management related positions.
So how has project management changed in the past 10 years?
I think the biggest change, as I was telling you before, is just going to a agile methodology where projects are, the timelines are a lot shorter, changes are rolled out they're implemented a lot faster. And that's why, of course, I recommended that you definitely get some agile training, because I think that is the way to go.